Are you ready to discover the 7 pillars to optimal health for your pets? Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you, and I want to get started right away so that we can really get to things. So what I will be doing is I will share my screen with you so that you can see the presentation. And then I will also turn off my camera during the presentation and let's start it. All right. I'm really, really happy to be here with all of you guys, and I'm so excited that you're taking the time to be here and do everything that you can for your animals to create a good life for them. So welcome, welcome. And for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Odette Suter. I'm a holistic veterinarian, and I help pet parents such as yourselves achieve better health for their animal companions. Today, we're going to talk about the holistic pet health and longevity method and discover the 7 pillars to optimal health. So I always start out with asking this: are you happy with the results that you're currently getting from your animal's health care? Is your animal's health where you would like to be? So please put it in the chat box. I'd love to know where you're at with that. And the thing is, when I ask this question, more often than not, the answer is no. For obvious reasons, because they don't usually come to see me unless they're having some health issues. But obviously, I would much prefer to work and help people keep their animals healthy, because that's much more productive. So today we're going to talk about how we can do things differently, because we really need to do things differently if we want to get different results. So today I will give you the strategy that I use in my practice to support my patients' healing and to optimize their health. So today we're going to go through the strategy, and this is what it is. It includes 7 pillars, which one of those is diet, so feeding a good diet. The second would be healing the GI tract, helping the body reduce toxins and removing toxins, balancing and replenishing hormones, maintaining optimal brain health and function of the nervous system in general, and fitness and exercise to preserve mobility, balance, and mental stimulation. And last but not least, we also do need to address emotional health and stress management, because we want to go from crying and being worried and frustrated and scared to being happy, and not just for our animals, but ourselves as well. This strategy that I'm going to share with you is really value-packed. So I highly recommend that you turn off all distractions. Turn off your phones, hide them if you have to, turn off the TV and really pay attention, because this will really change your animal's life if you truly understand what I'm about to share with you. So I'm assuming that you're watching this masterclass because your animal is showing symptoms and you would like to get rid of those. If that's the case, then what I need to show you is that the symptoms that your animal is currently exhibiting is merely a sign that it is losing its health. And that's why a lot of times we have multiple symptoms going on at the same time. So for example, if an animal has allergies, we may also see weight gain, lack of energy, recurrent infections, etc. And if we don't do something differently, we're going to end up with the same results over and over again. So if I can show you why it is that the treatments that you've tried haven't worked, or have only worked as long as they were on powerful drugs that created side effects, would you say, I would like to have an opportunity to do something about that? So I'm going to talk to you about the cause of disease and the factors that influence disease and your animal's health, because in reality, disease is really driven by these factors. I'm also going to explain how symptoms are simply a small part of a bigger picture. It's something that you have to know and you have to understand, because if you want to get rid of symptoms and get permanent relief, you really have to restore your animal's health from the foundation up. So I want you to understand disease. I want you to understand the common denominator of disease. And I also want you to understand what the cause of poor health is. As much as we think that different diseases are completely different and unrelated, hence the many Facebook groups, they have much more in common than what we're taught. And this is why the strategy that I share with you today can apply to every single body, no matter what's ailing it, with a little bit of tweaking, of course. So in fact, I use this strategy on a daily basis to keep my own body functioning at its highest potential. We're going to put all of this together and dive into the strategy. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like we have a healthcare crisis going on right now? Do we have a healthcare crisis or do we have a health crisis? Well, I would say both, because when we look at some numbers, we have cancer in 45% of dogs that are older than 10 years. So more than 45% of dogs will die of cancer. And we have 1 in 3 dogs that will develop tumors in their lifetimes. The Banfield State of Report also shows that within just a 5-year period, and this is not the most recent report, unfortunately, they didn't come out with a report like that again since then, but we have seen a huge increase in diabetes, dental disease, arthritis, and obesity. Today, over half of our pets are actually overweight. And then when we look at cancer incidence, we also see that there has been a very steep rise since the 1995. And we have had a 2.3-fold increase in just the 17 years. And I don't even want to know how much more it has increased since 2002. And the reason possibly why this is happening is that GMOs were hitting stores at the same time. And with GMOs came a lot of glyphosate. These days, we have glyphosate everywhere. Glyphosate is the active ingredient of Roundup, and that is sprayed everywhere. It's in our water. I mean, it's pretty much everywhere these days. So possibly a big contributor to the cancer incidence in dogs. We also see a lot of allergies. Dogs and cats can be affected by those, 10 to 20% of the population worldwide, according to this paper. Although I'm not sure that these numbers are really quite that accurate, because it seems like all I see is really allergies in my practice, or a lot of it anyways. So obviously we do have a lot of information that is probably wrong and lacking. And how do you feel about information? Is there enough out there? Is the information that's presented to us true? Is it confusing? Is it hard to come by? When I talk to people, oftentimes what they will tell me is that there is enough information, but it's really confusing because there are so many sides of the same story. In addition, a lot of information that is presented to us is purely marketing. So if I start the sentence, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to finish it for me. Milk, it does, ... a body good, right? You've probably all heard that. Now, who they came up with that? Was it the healthcare industry? No, it was the dairy industry. They want to make money, so it's just marketing. It's pure marketing. And so we need to be a little bit more discerning, but sometimes it's really hard to wade through all that information because there's always a lot of money attached to it. And that goes for, prescription foods or any label that says natural or pure or whatever it says. It's just all words to help sell us on different products. We humans also have a bit of a problem and tend to put things on a back burner until it hits us big time. Unfortunately, when it comes to health, that's not a very good strategy to have. But sometimes we also don't even know what to look for, or we don't recognize what's wrong until the cup really overflows. But the fact that you're here today tells me that you're ready for change, or at least curious about what you can do for your animals preventatively. But whether you're going to take action today will really determine their health from now on. Because you need to understand that whatever you have done up until now has determined their health up until now. But how it is going to be tomorrow, the next week, or the next years really depends on what you do from now on. And so we really need to do something differently if we want to have a different result. So as you may know, the American healthcare system is ranked at the bottom of all developed countries. But not only that, we also spend more money on healthcare than any other country, and that goes for animals as well. Unfortunately, that money generally doesn't translate into health. And even the World Health Organization says that the majority of all diseases prevalent today are not treatable with orthodox medical procedures. To make matters worse, the British Medical Journal says that 85% of medical procedures and surgeries are scientifically unproven. So we have a healthcare system that works for only a small percentage of diseases, and most of the tools that they use and procedures are not even proven. So where does that really leave our animals? Because we have to ask the question, do drugs and surgery really correct the underlying cause, or do they merely cover up symptoms? Of course, surgery is necessary when an animal breaks its leg and the bones are sticking out. So we definitely want to fix that underlying cause. But in other words, do you think that animals are having allergies, for example, because they're lacking prednisone in their bodies? Or do we get headaches because we have a Tylenol deficiency? So you need to understand that there's an underlying cause, and that underlying cause is not addressed by our current healthcare system. And that's why only a small percentage of all issues can be treated by that conventional healthcare system, and the rest really needs a different approach. And this is what we're going to talk about. So when I meet people, I always ask them, are you happy with the results that you're currently getting from your animal's healthcare? Well, most people will say no, because that's why they come to me. And most pet parents really have gone from vet to vet with no lasting improvement of their animal's health, because they are only given Band-Aids rather than uncovering the root cause. It leaves them wasting precious time and money while their pets continue to suffer. In desperation, they will often resort to becoming their own pet's vet through trying to put the pieces together through online research. Empowered pet parents, on the other hand, have discovered the root cause of disease and learned what is needed to restore and maintain health. They have become proactive in their pet's care and have gained a deeper understanding of how the body works. They use a proven system that helps their animals experience a happier and healthier life. So settle in and stick around if this is you. So if you're discouraged because you've gone from vet to vet and your beloved animal companion is still suffering, or you've exhausted what conventional medicine has to offer and desire to learn how to care for your animals through a holistic and functional approach, you feel overwhelmed by all the information available and don't know where to start, you would enjoy having a mentor and support group to help you optimize your animal's health, and you wish to start your puppy or kitten on a path of health by being proactive. This is also for you if you wish to become a troublemaker and shake up the veterinary profession. And I'm saying that with a big smile on my face here that you can't see, because people who are educated are really the people who are making a difference and changing things in the world. And so I know that a lot of you may not be completely aware of it, but it's really you who are changing healthcare by voting with your money, basically, and by being educated. So stick around if you want to be an educated client and also support your vet, because as veterinarians, we oftentimes don't have enough time to give all the education that we would like to. And so if you're already pre-educated, then you can also help your vet in that regard. And with the shortage that we're having these days, they will be very grateful for that. Also stick around if you work in the animal field and would like to better support your clients and customers. So stick around if that describes you. But I know that this class and this approach is not for everyone, but I still encourage you to stay because information may someday come in handy. But feel free to leave if you're only looking for a quick fix and natural Band-Aids, if you're not interested in new ideas and change, and if you think you've learned everything there is about holistic medicine, and if you don't take action. I will definitely make you an offer at the end, so I want to be really transparent. I'm going to give you the 45 minutes of strategy that has helped hundreds of my animal patients, but I will definitely make you an offer at the end. So if that's against what you want, feel free to leave. But I really hope that you're staying, because my sole mission on this planet is to improve the quality of life for all of our animals friends by supporting and empowering you with the knowledge needed to create a beautiful, healthy, long life for your furry companions. So I encourage you to stay until the end, because I will open up the floor for some questions. So drop them in the chat box, like I mentioned before, because I'm really excited. So Before we dive into some of these tactics, I want to give you a little bit of history of what qualifies me to deliver this health-changing information, because I know a lot of people don't know me. I've been a holistic vet for about 27 years, but it was my parents who already primed me for a natural approach to life. We had our own veggie garden, and my mother would brew really nasty teas and herbal concoctions when I was sick. And I also learned to honor and care for all living beings, including our planet Earth, from very young on. Even before vet school, I supported the animals in my care through unconventional ways. I was never satisfied with the status quo and always asked questions that made my teachers nervous. As you can imagine, my professors in vet school didn't particularly welcome that. But thankfully, I met many people on the way who kept bursting my little bubble with new thought-provoking and late life-altering information. But unfortunately, being off to a good start, sadly, it did not result in good health for me. I had many stressors with my mom's passing, the intensity of vet school, and the challenges of stepping into the world as a veterinarian all really took their toll. I became really sick with chronic fatigue syndrome, and my couch became my best friend. For many years, I had zero energy, and I really felt like I was dying. It was really bad. In that time, though, I devoured a ton of information and tried many different modalities in the attempt to heal myself. I left no stone unturned, and with each stone, I learned a tremendous amount. But what really pulled me through this difficult time was my strong belief that if my body breaks, I should be able to fix it. Obviously, I had a lot of mentors along the way. They taught me to be open, courageous, brave, and they taught me that healing comes from leaping into the unknown. And my stubbornness, or as I like to call it, persistence, came in handy. I was 100% committed to curing my body. But my healing story didn't finish there. I did recover from chronic fatigue. But years later, a pony threw me to the ground, and I ended up with a lot of pain. And as a result, I took some pain medication that then triggered an autoimmune response, which was quite painful. But I really, really needed to have this experience because the excruciating physical pain it brought helped me to open up to conventional medicine and really integrate both worlds. Because before that, I was just all holistic and no drugs and all that. So I had to learn to integrate those. And thankfully, by that time, I had already discovered that it takes a system and a methodical approach to restore function and heal. And so it only took me 2 years to fully recover and be in better health than ever to this day. So I can relate to your animals because I suffered from 2 debilitating diseases that most people never recover from. I see many animals with chronic conditions that considerably impact not only their lives, but also that of caregivers. Because my own journey put me through the ringer, I was definitely forced to question, examine, learn, change, and grow. And my body really taught me more than vet school ever could, and has made me the veterinarian I am today. So my experience gave me the knowledge and the humility that it takes for me to help my patients and their families. And most of all, I discovered the key to true healing, which is it takes all pieces of the puzzle to create a whole. And that's why I'm so excited about sharing this method with you, because it truly changed my life and helped hundreds of my patients go from poor quality of life to enjoying vibrant health. And here are just a couple of testimonials just to show you the deep impact that people have experienced for their animals through my work. Rhonda says, we have been trying for over a year to help our dog. She was only 2 years old, but was acting like a 15-year-old dog. She only wanted to lay around and sleep. Her former vet offered no help, and after a year and repeated costs on tests, they gave us no hope. I found Odette, and after just the first visits, there was a huge improvement in our pup. She continued being treated on a 6-month health restart program, and she's now 5 years old and more active than her 2-year-old sister. The learning sessions with the program were so informational, and the continued health for both of our pets. And we are so thankful that we found Odette. It literally gave our dog back to life and a full, happy life. And Jessica says, I cannot say enough great things about Dr. Odette Suter. Several years ago, one of my dogs was in agony with allergies. We had tried everything, so we thought, and the vets we had taken him to had been pumping him full of meds and they weren't working. His skin was swollen, red, and bleeding from all the scratching he was doing. And now after the care, his allergies are under control, so he could live a happy and healthy life. And this is another one here. This is Lulu, and she's actually sitting on my chair right next to the treat jar. So she has trained me well. So training goes both ways. So Dr. Suter has been unbelievable with my dog the past couple of months and has been able to restore her health. I highly recommend Dr. Suter to anyone who loves their animal. And Jill, she says that prior to meeting Dr. Suter, we were living in fear of our dog's illnesses, back and forth to specialist vets and more medication. After only 3 months of working with Dr. Suter, our dogs have remarkable health improvements. Specifically, our dog rarely wagged his tail and was very anxious. He's now a happy, healthy, calm boy. Clear eyes, wonderful demeanor, wagging his tail constantly. We cannot thank Dr. Suter enough. So these are just some of the results that I'm getting with this approach with my patients. So are you ready to do the same with your pets? Give me a ready in the chat. By having this method at your fingertips, imagine where your furry friends and you could be in just 1 year. So consider this your shortcut. And I see a lot of yeses and readies and absolutely awesome. That is so amazing. Thank you, guys. From my own story, you can probably tell that it took me way too long to heal, according to me anyways. And with our animal friends, we don't have 10 years. We don't have a whole decade to try to fix their health problems. So I don't want you to waste precious time and also money, because a lot of money is involved in that too. And truth be told is that our animals, they don't have a decade for you to figure it out. They don't have time, they don't live that long. So let's dive right in. I want to get started with the cause of disease, because in order to understand the strategy and for a strategy to make sense, we also need to understand what causes disease. So as a veterinarian, when I see an animal, I ask two very important and very simple questions. The first one is, if the animal's body isn't functioning properly, what is it missing? And the second question is, if the animal's body isn't functioning properly, what might be interfering with that function? And those are very simple questions and logical questions that most of us really think about. So if I show you this picture of a wilting plant, what is your first thought? Well, it needs a little bit of water, right? That's very logical. It needs water. What else might it need? Maybe a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of nutrients. Yeah. And then on the other hand, what could be interfering with this plant? Maybe it has some bugs or some toxins, or somebody poured gasoline on it instead of water. So this is very logical thinking, and that's how most people think, and that's what I do. So let me just explain real quickly. All the things that I learned 27 years ago, I have integrated, but for the most part, I don't really use it a whole lot these days, because what I do is I practice functional medicine. Have you guys heard of functional medicine? Do you know what it is? Well, it's real simple. It's applying natural things to help your animal's body function better. Now, what happens if your animal's body functions better? Its health will improve, right? Now, let me tell you a little something about health improving that most people don't know. When the animal is healing allergies, for example, it is also at the same time healing obesity, recurrent infection, lack of energy, and whatever else might be going on at that time. Because when the body heals, it heals everything all at once. And that's because the principles that cause the body to heal are all the same. Now, can drugs do that? No, obviously not. If you have to give drugs, the drugs will last for a certain period of time. And during that time, the symptoms of your animals might go away. But what happens if you stop the drug? Well, the symptoms will come right back, right? So if you're giving drugs, you have to give them every day. And that's really very much like going to the mechanic with your car, because the car engine light is on, But all the mechanic does is he just resets the light and doesn't do anything to the car. So what will happen when you drive off? Well, the car engine light will come right back on, right? So wouldn't that make you furious if your mechanic were to do that to you? But that's really what the conventional healthcare system is doing to our animals. And again, I'm not here to ask you or tell you to take your animals off drugs. Please don't do that. If you do choose to do that, please do it under the supervision of your veterinarian. And I'm also not here to bash our conventional medical system, because it definitely has its place, like I learned the hard way. In fact, it's really good for any sort of crisis situation. So for example, if your dog, cat, or horse, or you have a life-threatening emergency, you want to be able to use that system. You want to have the help immediately and change that around. So the healthcare system, the conventional one, is a bit more like firemen. They come to your house when your house is burning, and you definitely want them to be there with their water hoses and axes to take care of the fire ASAP. But then the next day, are you going to call them back to rebuild your house? I would think not, because you don't want to have more destruction. You want to work with someone who can help rebuild the house. You want a carpenter. And that's where holistic and functional medicine come in. That's what I do. I teach you how to rebuild your animal's health. I understand the principle that it takes to rebuild health. And those are the principles that I will share with you in this masterclass. So sadly, it's not how our healthcare system functions, because a lot of people consult with WebMD that has a symptom tracker, and then they just put in their symptoms, push a button, and it tells them what kind of disease they have. And then they push another button, and then it tells them what drug to use. And that's really how our healthcare system is functioning. If we look at this dog, for example, the first thought is, well, what medical condition does it have? Well, some skin issue. All right, so the second thought is, well, what drug do we use, or what supplement do we need, or what shampoo do we need to treat that? But we forget to actually ask the question of, what the underlying cause is. But the pharmaceutical companies, they spend billions of dollars each year on marketing to make you think that way, because they want you to believe that if an animal has a disease, then they need a prescription drug for life. So this is wrong information. We have a sick animal, we give it a drug, or unfortunately these days I also see this happening with supplements, where we just try to use a supplement as a Band-Aid, something natural. But that still doesn't mean that we end up with health, because we still need to look at the underlying cause. So I mentioned the common denominator of disease. And as you might have guessed, this common denominator is inflammation. There's a lot of talk about inflammation these days, and oftentimes we have this chronic underlying inflammation that we don't see. It's a bit like a volcano that hasn't erupted yet, but it's sort of bubbling under the surface. And then all of a sudden, when the body can't compensate anymore, it will start to erupt, and we will start to see the symptoms. So inflammation is really a good thing in acute situations when an animal injures itself, for example, because we want inflammation there for the healing process. But certainly we don't want to have this inflammation going on all the time, because that's when it really becomes a bad thing, and sometimes even a deadly thing. So inflammation can be good in the acute phase, but if we have chronic inflammation going on, it's really bad. And I'm sure that you know some of the diseases that result from chronic inflammation, cancer, for example, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, more so in humans, pancreatitis, autoimmune disease, arthritis, renal disease, IBD, etc. So a lot of these diseases that we see nowadays in our animals and us humans as well are really at the base, the chronic inflammation that causes damage to the body. So chronic inflammation is really hidden inflammation that's run amok, and it's at the root of all chronic illness. We can have chronic smoldering inflammation that is slowly destroying our organs and our ability to function optimally. So what causes inflammation? Poor diet, could that be the cause? Toxins, hormone imbalance, gut issues, vaccines, drugs, including preservatives, excess fat, lack of exercise, stress. These are all causes of inflammation, and I want to look at them a little bit more closely with you. So right here, we have this big blob here is the liver, and you can see that we have toxins going into the liver. If I can get my mouse to work here, yeah. So we have toxins that go into the liver, and they get converted into waste products that are then water soluble and can be removed from the body through the gallbladder and the bile, and then also through the kidneys and the urine. And in order for this transformation of toxins to water-soluble waste to occur, we need all of these nutrients here so that this can all function properly. So if we don't have all of these nutrients, then the liver can not really do what it's supposed to do, and it can't really get rid of the waste. And as a result, these toxins then accumulate in the system. So we need good nutrition for liver detoxification to be able to happen properly. And obviously, I'm not asking you to memorize all of these things. That will be all part of the program. When we go into depth, we'll talk about all that. And very closely related to the liver is the thyroid hormone. And I picked the thyroid gland as an example because the thyroid hormones are essential to all function of the body, of all the cells of the body. The thyroid gland is located right next to the trachea, right here in the throat area on both sides, and it produces T4. T4 is a thyroid hormone, so 90% of all thyroid hormone is T4. T4 is the inactive form of thyroid hormone, and T3 is the active form. So T4 is a bit like crude oil that needs to be converted into gasoline in order to be able to be used for the car. So T3 is the active form. And you might ask where this activation is actually taking place. Well, maybe you guessed it right. It's in the liver. So 60% of T4 is converted to T3 in the liver. So we have to have a really well-functioning liver in order for that to happen, but we also have to have enough T3 for the liver to be able to function properly. And there are other tissues that also convert T4 into T3. We have peripheral tissue, and then we also have the gut that does that. So unfortunately, when your vet is doing thyroid testing, very often they will only test for T4. Unfortunately, that doesn't give you all the information because it doesn't tell you how much of that T4 is actually being converted into T3. Plus, there is also a number of toxins that block the receptor sites at a cellular level. And what that means is that T3 cannot attach to its receptors because somebody is already sitting there. So it's a bit like trying to put a key into a keyhole, but there's already a key in it. So to get the whole picture, your veterinarian really needs to do a full thyroid panel, which includes T4, T3, and then also antibodies to the thyroid gland. And if an animal has all normal results, but is still showing signs of low thyroid, I tend to do a bit of a trial just to see how they respond and if they feel better, because we cannot really test what's going on at the periphery at the cell level. All right, so next is the GI tract. It causes a lot of issues for animals if it's not functioning properly. So let's have a closer look. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, no guts, no glory. In the gut, if the gut isn't working properly, the entire body will have issues, including the skin, brain, mouth, teeth, etc. This whole section here is that you see is a part of the GI tract. And in the GI tract, on the inside of it, we have one layer of cells that is covering that inside. So we have food on one side, and then on the other side, we have blood vessels and lymph vessels that then move the nutrients that are taken in through the cells throughout the body so that it can nourish the body. So on the left side here, you can see that these are all normal cells. They are very tightly connected, and they also have little finger-like structures where all the enzymes sit and also the microbes of the gut. Now, right here, you can see that the tight junctions have been destroyed and there is a space between the cells. Now, what's happening when we have big spaces between cells is that particles that they can go into the bloodstream without being properly broken down first and digested. So when food is eaten, let's say a piece of chicken, it has to be digested into individual amino acids to be absorbed into the cell and then go from that cell into the bloodstream. Now, if we have whole pieces of chicken that comes through and go directly into the bloodstream, the body is going to say, hey, wait a minute, this is an invader. That's not supposed to be there. And what happens if we have an invader? Well, of course, the immune system is going to come running and is going to create a lot of inflammation in order to get rid of this invader. And this phenomenon is termed leaky gut. And it really makes sense. This leak, because things leak into the body that aren't supposed to be there. And that's not just for protein, that also goes for bacteria, toxins, and other undigested parts that go floating around into the bloodstream. And because blood moves, so we end up having particles moving all around the body in the blood. And so we end up having more inflammation that is happening in the entire body as a result. But aside from the inflammation, we also, our animals also end up with malabsorption and nutrient deficiency because that food is not properly digested and broken down. Autoimmunity is another result of it because we have proteins or particles that come through that may look very similar to the ones that are present in the body already, such as the kidneys or the thyroid, for example. Gluten is a prime example for that. It looks very similar to the thyroid tissue. So if the immune system is primed to attack gluten, it will also start recognizing the thyroid gland as gluten, and it will start to attack the thyroid gland. Another thing that ends up happening is that the blood-brain barrier is being breached because the immune system will release cytotoxins. These are inflammatory chemicals that cause the blood-brain barrier to start leaking as well. And then the animals end up with things going into the brain that aren't supposed to be there. And that causes inflammation in the brain. And of course, as the poop lady, I can't not talk about the microbiome. The microbiome is basically the microbial community that lives in and around the body. It outnumbers the body's cells by a factor of 10. Genetically, it outnumbers the body by a factor of 100. And there are hundreds of different species that code for 90% of all metabolic processes that happen in the body. And there are 200,000 microbes per one immune cell. So they are really the first line of defense. And what are we doing these days? We try to kill them off at like exponential rate. And that's really bad. So based on that, who is running the show in our bodies? Well, it is obviously the microbes. But again, because we are killing them, we have now seen a decrease of diversity by about 50%, and that's not good because these microbes are really what keep us and our animals and the planet alive. So we definitely need those. So just to demonstrate a little bit more about how everything is connected, I just want to briefly talk to you about my childhood dog, Windy. When she was 7 years old, she started to have allergies. And at first it was just allergies during the summertime, maybe for a month or so. The next year it was 2 months, and then the duration just kept increasing until she had skin issues basically all year round. Now later in life, she also developed memory cancer, and even later on, she developed dementia. Since pretty much all diseases originate in the gut, the progression of disease was really no surprise in retrospect. I know now that she had so much inflammation going on and that it then really slowly destroyed her brain and her body. And that's really what's going on with animals as they get older. And it's very similar to what's going on with all the neurodegenerative diseases that we see in humans who have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease. So the issues start very early on. I think with Alzheimer's, they have found that it starts 30 years before we even start to see symptoms. So if we have inflammation in the gut, then it will cause inflammation in the entire body, including the brain. And there's a lot of research being done right now to find out more about the connection between the gut and the brain. And the scientists have found that if there is a problem in the gut, usually the brain will make a mountain out of it. And I see this happening every day. In fact, I'm just now working with a dog with IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease, who has had diarrhea for the last 3 years and lots of anxiety with that. So just by healing this dog's gut, obviously the diarrhea went away, but his anxiety did as well. So he's able to be back to normal and live a happy life. Another patient of mine who didn't actually have any gut issues and also didn't have a lot of symptoms going on, but the owner just wanted to be proactive and decided to switch the dog to an anti-inflammatory diet, do some fecal transplants and detox as well. And lo and behold, the dog, who had always been a bit shy and been tucking his head when somebody wanted to pet him, stopped doing that. He became more assertive. His whole attitude changed. He became more outgoing. So there was a really big change in that dog just by switching diet and getting a little bit of inflammation out of his body, even though he was considered a healthy dog. And this patient is really a perfect example of a volcano that has been bubbling under the surface but hasn't erupted yet. But what would have happened if we had waited? Who knows? So it only makes sense to take care of things before they actually get out of hand. Because the fact is that today we all need this kind of support in order to stay healthy, because we're exposed to toxins and suffer from nutrient deficiencies due to soil depletion. So it's not like it was 100 years ago. So where do all these toxins come from? They come from factories, car exhaust, from the water that the animals drink, pesticides, herbicides that are sprayed everywhere, artificial flavors and preservatives that can be found in the food itself, genetically modified organisms, drugs, the body itself, because this kind of body here, it becomes its own chemical and toxic factory. Obviously, we also have to look a little bit about stress, especially in the last 2 years. The stress levels for everybody have gone up significantly. And so have the issues with our animals' health, probably in part due to stress. So definitely we need to pay really close attention to deal with stress and limit that. So when we look at toxins and compare how it was years and years ago and how it is today, we can see that there are more than 1.5 million new chemicals that have come on the market since World War II, and most of those are carcinogenic and also have never been tested for safety. And 80,000 of those actually interfere with hormones. They're called xenoestrogens, so they are estrogen mimickers, and they cause havoc to the body. And here's a graph that you can see where in the 1940s, the chemical production, the synthetic organic chemical production was about 1 million kilograms, and it has now gone up to about 200 plus billion kilograms that are used and produced each year. So that's an incredible amount. And how can we expect the body to be able to deal with that? The body's detoxification system was not designed to deal with this kind of onslaught of toxicity. And so we really need to support the body's detox organs if we want to keep our animals healthy. So what is the solution? I'm sure you've been waiting for that one. So we'll talk about the seven pillars. And I'm assuming that you're really listening in because you haven't really received the help that you need for your animals that you would like. So you're not alone in that. Unfortunately, many people are in the same boat. But let me ask you this, based on what I just explained to you and talked to you about, can you predict the future of your animal's health? Well, I hope you said yes or thought yes, because you can, at least to some extent. Obviously, we live in a toxic world and things are challenging, but there's a lot that we can do in order to help our animals and put them on a good path of health. But we have to test and not just guess. We have to order the correct tests to find out what the underlying cause is. And then we want to focus on that underlying cause and not just on the symptoms, because we have to correct the dysfunction and not just alter labs with drugs. And we have to address the body as a whole, because as you could see from the brief explanation, everything is connected. And so we need to take a systematic approach, and you need to learn the steps you need to take for that. Because there's nothing more frustrating than having a goal in sight, but not knowing how to get there. So my program is designed to show you just that. And as I mentioned, this system was developed out of the challenges of my own life. I tried this, I tried that, a little bit of acupuncture, a little chiro, a little bit of herbs, a little bit of this and that. And what I discovered is that it wasn't until I put all the pieces together and figured out that I really needed to use a system that my health started to turn around and I started to get better. So I'm here to show you how the system works. I'm going to mentor you along the way. And again, that's really important because without having a good system, there's a really big chance that you will fail or that it will just not happen quickly enough for your animals. So with this system, we have 7 different components that are key to not only restoring health, but also to maintain health. So what are they? The first one that I always start out with is nutrition. I want to make sure that my animal patients are getting a healthy diet that provides essential nutrients for optimal cell function. And that's a species-appropriate diet that is designed for the individual needs, definitely. Best are fresh organic food, minimally processed, and also a low-carb diet because carbohydrates tend to create a lot of inflammation in the body. And dogs and cats have no requirement for carbohydrates. And I would say that humans also need very little carbohydrates because the body actually works better on fat for fuel. And we also want to make sure that we remove all the things in the diet of an animal that could potentially contribute to toxicity and disease. So we want to give them a diet that really supports their health and gives them what they need, because food either heals or harms. So the next step then, and I usually do both of those a little bit concurrently, is to heal the gastrointestinal tract. Because as Hippocrates says, all diseases begin in the gut, and he's lived like thousands of years ago, and he already knew that, and we are pretty much just starting to rediscover that. So when I do the healing of the GI tract, we obviously remove the offending foods, whatever could be affecting the gut microbiome and also the gut lining. So we want to remove the foods that are pro-inflammatory. And we want to also treat chronic infections. So if your animals have parasites, we would want to get rid of those. And then we also want to add digestive aids, and those can be enzymes, for example, but then also herbs and other types of nutrients that just help to repair the gut lining and support this one cell layer to restore its integrity. And we also want to restore the microbiome and the balance of that. Fecal transplants is usually how I do it because probiotics are so limited. They have 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 10 at the most different species of microbes in them, and most of them are not even the right ones. So probiotics really cannot come even close to what we could do by giving a dog a fully balanced microbiome from a donor animal. So that's what you saw me doing in that picture earlier. And then after step 1 and 2 are in place, and that's really important because we want to have a good balance. We want the body to have some stability before we start to detoxify it. But of course, we can already start to remove toxins that we can control so that not more of those go into the system, such as, for example, removing, changing to biodegradable products that you use in your house for cleaning, removing plug-in scented things that smell awful, in my opinion, candles, and then also clean their paws when they come in because they pick up whatever pesticides are floating around in the neighborhood, in the grass. Also changing to more natural things that you use in your own yard. So these are things that you can already start from day 1. Actually, you can start today with that. You also want to limit toxic drugs and preventatives and vaccines, especially if an animal is not healthy. We definitely have to be very careful with vaccines. I don't recommend vaccinating if they're not healthy because that's what it actually says on the label. It's only for healthy animals. A lot of preventatives out there, even though they may be very practical because it's just a pill that you give that will treat everything and get rid of everything, it may also get rid of your animals, unfortunately. Some of those have FDA warnings on them, so you want to be careful as far as what you put into the system of your animal. So choose non-toxic alternatives. Providing clean water is very important as well, because our water is very polluted. A lot of the water that we're drinking has all sorts of drugs, pesticides, and other chemicals in it that we do not want to get into the system. There's a way that you can figure out what the water quality is like in your area by going to the Environmental Working Group website. They have a page where you can put in your zip code, and then it lets you know what kinds of chemicals are in your water. And it also tells you what filters you would need in order to get those out, because the little carbon filters that you can find in these pictures, they can't get all the toxins out. And we also want to decrease EMF exposure to the animals, because that also wreaks havoc on the cells and also the microbiome itself. So we want to definitely decrease exposure of that. And then I also recommend doing a biannual cleansing, mostly in the spring and fall. That's when I recommend it, because that's when the body is most ready to detoxify itself anyway. So we want to use that. And then I also recommend doing that before and after an anesthetic procedure, because that will also help to support the body recover from whatever they're going through a little bit better. And then we also need to look at hormones. They affect all aspects of life, including behavior. So when in doubt, I test the levels. And then we can support the hormone glands with glandular supplements. For example, for dogs and cats that have been spayed and neutered, we can replenish some of these hormones that they are now missing through glandular supplements. And obviously decreasing stress is important as well, so that the adrenal glands can work really well. Because when the adrenal glands are overworking and overproducing cortisol, there's less available to actually make other hormones that they would need. And we also want to improve communication between hormone glands, because they all communicate with each other. And I like to do that with some body work that I've found that is very helpful. And then we also want to aid the metabolism and detoxification of hormones, because we don't want them to keep accumulating. Once they're used up, they need to leave the body. And that, again, is something that the liver does. And one perfect example for that is a patient of mine who is intact. He's very young, and he was just showing a lot of signs of being running on way too much testosterone. And it wasn't until we started to support the liver more that his behavior came back to a bit more normal and tolerable, because it was really helping to get rid of some of these hormones that were accumulating. And then, of course, we also have to look at the nervous system. Lifelong maintenance is really recommended for that. It's like your car, you're going to get some oil change for its lifetime. And the same is really true for the nervous system. It needs lifelong maintenance, because every part of the body receives nerve input and talks also with the brain. And we have the gut-brain axis, and we have the brain itself that's very sensitive to inflammation. So we definitely want to support that. And for you to remember, deterioration really starts early in life. A low-carb diet is very helpful for the brain, because the brain works better on fats. And we also have to use the nervous system through exercise, because if we don't use it, then we lose it, basically. And that brings me to fitness and exercise, which is really crucial to preserve mobility, balance, and mental stimulation. It's the key to longevity. It helps to maintain joint health, because if we have strong muscles and muscles that are balanced and even throughout the body, then it really keeps the joints in place so that they don't have to start building up extra bone to create more stability. So joint health is very much dependent on fitness and exercise. And it's fun. It helps to provide them with a little bit of entertainment, and also helps to release endorphins, and is really good when they're suffering from stress. And then last but not least, emotional health and stress management. And that goes for us humans too, because animals do tend to sense our stress. And we do need to remove not just the mental and emotional stress that they experience, but also look at the physical stress, because an unhealthy body is very stressful to the animal. And I see that a lot, when they experience pain, for example, or if they have a tooth that is causing pain. And so I see a lot of times that after they've had a dental and the tooth was removed, that they feel so much better. And we also want to create a safe environment for them so that they don't have to worry all the time either, and that they can feel safe. And communicating with them is really crucial as well. So when you're doing things that are different and not what you usually do in your life, make sure that you communicate with them and let them know, just like they're a friend, or your partner. You're saying, hey, I'm going to the supermarket, or, I'm going to be gone for 2 days, but I'll be back and I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And this person is going to take care of you. And, so just tell them all these things. And we can use herbs and supplements as well to help manage their stress. Herbs such as ashwagandha, for example. We can also use CBD, 5-HTP. So there are a lot of different things that we can give them to help manage their stress. But it's really important that we really put all these pieces together, because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, as Aristotle said. And here's something to consider. Learning about health is like learning to fly a plane. Would you do this on your own by watching videos or reading a book about it? I surely hope not, because that would not be very healthy. The same is true for healing. You really need somebody to help you. And as doctors, it is really our duty to teach, because doctor means teacher in Latin. And healing is easier and faster with a mentor who can guide you. And some other things to keep in mind are that even though for me, for example, I had a very healthy upbringing and thought I was doing everything right, I still got sick. And it took me 10 years to heal my chronic fatigue, because I was on my own on that. And had I known then what I have discovered through countless hours of research and tens of thousands of dollars spent, I would also have suffered a lot less. And our animals don't have the luxury of time, especially nowadays. So let's get started now. And this is Dakota. She was 20 pounds overweight when I met her, had no energy, and had a really sad face. And after only a few months, she slimmed down and became her sassy and happy self. Nico as well, he was quite challenged. He suffered from food sensitivities that caused him to have awful chronic ear and skin issues. With dietary change, gut healing, and hormone support, he became a sweet and happy cat again. And you can see here that was his belly. It had this big red blotch here, and he was losing a lot of hair because he was licking himself constantly. And here's his belly afterwards, full of hair again. And then Melissa said, I brought home this wonderful, intelligent little puppy, and within the first year, he was slipping away from me. I know he did not feel well, but his symptoms did not seem connected. His feet would bleed, he had pimple-like sores on his torso, he was obsessed with licking up urine and eating a lot of dirt, lack of focus, and very sensitive to any touch. And within a few weeks, Dr. Suter found out exactly what was going on with him and got him on the proper protocol. It was life-changing for both of us, as he became the dog I knew that he could be. And I was so thankful that he was finally feeling great and wanting to do things. Dr. Suter gave my dog back to me, and Grit and I are forever grateful. So this is Grit, and I keep getting little reports on Grit every few days, and it's just so heartwarming to see how he is blossoming with the good care that he's getting from Melissa. So this is not just a theory. Until now, I only shared this system with my one-on-one patients like Grit, Dakota, and Nico. I have tested this entire system and proven its result with my own body and many of my animal patients. At this point, with the increased need for support and significant veterinary shortage, especially in the holistic area, I know I can make a greater impact by sharing it with more people, which is why I'm here with you today. This method is time-tested and proven. And to this day, I'm using this method in my practice. In fact, I'm also continuing to use these strategies for my own body. So if you're thinking, I'm ready, where do I start? Well, all you have to do is commit and take action, which I know you've already done by taking the time of being here in this masterclass today. So I only gave you a small peek into the entire holistic pet health and longevity strategy, but as I'm sure you can imagine, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to taking your furry companion's health to a new level, optimizing their body's function, and preventing disease by implementing the 7 pillars of health. So you have 2 options. You can either do it yourself and try to figure it out on your own, or you can take the proven success path. If you decide to work with me, nothing is held back. No missing steps. You just need to follow my lead step by step. I'm on a mission to empower you, to take your animal's health into your own hands, to remove the headaches and teach you the exact process to care for your animals in a truly holistic way that helps optimize their body's function. And that's what my holistic pet health and longevity method includes. I have taken the entire process from start to finish to support your vets live a long and happy life through guidance on how to optimize their diet, heal their digestive system, and create a safer internal and external environment to reduce toxic load so that you can set your fur babies up for a healthy life and also proactively support them into their senior years. I put it all into this program through lectures, Q&A sessions, and the support of a like-minded community and myself, a truly holistic veterinarian. Why is it that I'm doing this? Well, the biggest issue I see in the holistic animal space is that there's so much information out there, each place only teaching a piece of the puzzle essential to creating greater health for your animals. I also see many people struggling with how to integrate holistic and conventional veterinary advice and how to communicate with their veterinarians effectively. Not having a clear path and getting advice from different Facebook groups and lay people, for example, is also very confusing, and which is something that most people resort to when they are looking for help. Only addressing one pillar of health is also like building just one wall. That can never be a house. And trying to manage symptoms with natural remedies is all good, but it is only marginally better than using conventional medicine because it's not really addressing the underlying cause in many cases. So we do want to not start using natural remedies as Band-Aids. We still want to find the underlying cause. So I wanted you to have the best possible launch pad for your animals to have a happy and healthy life, because I've been through it. I'm coming at this with years of experience, experimenting and finding the things that actually work long-term versus just trends. Oliver, he improved 90% in just a few weeks. He suffers from a painful autoimmune condition that attacks the muscles used for chewing. When he came to see me, his only option was to increase steroid dosage to keep him comfortable. Testing revealed low thyroid levels, food sensitivity, and an imbalance in the microbiome. And so we treated him by eliminating offending foods. We did a fecal transplant. We put him on some hormones. And we also gave him some Chinese herbs. And in the beginning, he was also getting weekly acupuncture and chiro. And the outcome was that he was coming out of hiding. He was sitting next to his owner on the couch again. He was able to open his mouth up again to pick up his ball, to play. And we were able to decrease steroids, which was really amazing. And not so good for me, he became a lot more feisty and difficult to treat, but that's a really good problem I like to have. So Oliver really improved just in a few weeks by implementing this strategy. There's also been some deep impact that I've been able to achieve just by teaching, and it has changed their lives with respect to our animals. Her classes are enlightening and informative. I believe any pet owner should invest in Dr. Suter's program. Our friends and family who see our two dogs after only 3 months of working with Dr. Suter have commented on how different our dogs are acting. Happy, healthy, wonderful dogs now live with us, all thanks to her. The other testimonial here, for full disclosure, is from my sister, who's a big fan of mine, but she's also been living parallel to me. We are kind of on the same healing journey and same philosophy. But she ended up watching my video series about a year ago, and that's what she wrote. Your video series is absolutely amazing. Wow, I feel like I went through vet school. There's an enormous amount of extraordinary information organized in such a clear way, and the contents are easy to understand to the average busy layperson. In the times that we live in, it is a must to educate ourselves as we continue to pave the way of a new and empowering health paradigm for both animals and humans. Our vets cannot do it alone. we have to help spread the information. Clearly, your series applies to the human being too. And that's a very important point that she made, is that we really need to help veterinarians in general, because the more empowered and more educated you are, the easier it is for them as well. And speaking as a veterinarian, we really need empowered and educated pet parents. It really helps. All right, so my dream pet parent that I would like to work with wants to do everything in their power to optimize their pet's health, is motivated to take action and make changes, is a student at heart and enjoys learning, understands that it is an investment in their pet's health, and loves to be part of the village that it takes to, keep our animals healthy, and also support others in their journey. And one that is also ready to be challenged and keep me on my toes too. So are you next? Well, the better the fit, the better the results, in my experience. This is really my service in this world, and I want to help pet parents who really want to learn and change. So this is really coming from my heart and from my soul. So do you want in? So here is how the process works. Who is this for? It's for pet parents, trainers, pet store owners, animal communicators, breeders, pet health coaches, and also for veterinarians and vet nurses who want to branch into the holistic arena. It's for pet families who are tired of watching their animals suffering and wish to learn to create a long and happy life for their furry companions. It's for those who understand that investing into your animal's health and having skin in the game is the only way to truly heal and not stay stuck on the treadmill of chasing symptoms with Band-Aids. It's for people who are action takers and who are actually going to implement the information. So if this sounds like you, you're invited to sign up for an interview to see if you're a good fit to enroll in my holistic pet health and longevity program. I have set aside time in the next 7 days to talk to you and see if I can help. The call is about 45 minutes long, and the intention is for me to understand your challenges and frustrations around your pet's health care and also your goals for your companion, and to identify how and if we're a good fit to work together inside of my holistic pet health and longevity method program. So if you want to apply now, here's the link, and I will drop it into the chat box in just a minute. So if you want to apply, there are a lot of people in this masterclass, and my schedule can only handle 6 calls a day. So if you really are wanting to go for it, I suggest that you apply right away. And I'm sure that by now you understand that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So what you're investing into your animals today will pay you out in dividends to come in the future. All right, so here's what I know to be true. I would not be where I am today without investing in working with the people who were where I wanted to be. So where do you want to be in a year? So if you want to apply now, here's the link again, and I will post it. And then I'm going to come back online with the video and stop the share right here. And then we'll start with the questions. And I see that you guys have already put some questions in there. Well, thanks so much for hanging in there. I know it went a little bit longer than what I had planned, but it's all good. Lots of information, and people can always watch it back. All right, so let me dive into some questions. Christine says, I have a Romanian puppy who you've had for 12 years and had to go to vets for meds of paracetamol and probiotics due to upset tummy. Once recovered, is there anything that may be useful for us? Oh, 12 days, sorry, 12 days. So I'm assuming that you're talking about a young puppy, but definitely there's a lot of things that you can do. There are supplements that you can use. So you can definitely give them nutrients that help to support the liver. For example, milk thistle is one of them. Dimethylglycine is another one. It's called DMG. That's very helpful. So those are some of the things to help to support the liver. Obviously, feeding a good nutrition is important so that the liver really has the availability, the ability to recover and get what it needs. Yeah, I'm not quite getting quite enough information here to tell you more about it, but definitely detoxifying can help. I also find that vitamin C in higher dosages, and I like liposomal vitamin C a lot because it gets absorbed into the system really well. And liposomal vitamin C is really good with decreasing toxic things. It basically inactivates those. And an example of that was that I had to go to the dentist for some work, and they had to do an injection to, numb the area. And I had taken a bunch of vitamin C beforehand. And well, needless to say, the injections didn't work because the vitamin C was actually destroying that. So vitamin C can be very powerful for toxins. All right, so Leanne, does rosemary extract in dog food actually affect dogs with seizures? For example, Honest Kitchen clusters and freeze-dried raw duck from Primal have rosemary extract. Would I still feed either to Mowgli? Well, with a dog that has seizures, I would definitely not give any of the things that could potentially make it worse. So I don't think I would necessarily take the risk. But there are different things that can cause seizures, and different dogs will have different triggers. So it's very possible that rosemary will never do anything to your dog, whereas for another dog, it may be a problem. So it's not really a clear-cut answer, but it really depends a little bit on what the situation is. If your dog is having seizures all the time, I probably wouldn't add anything else that could potentially make it worse. Deborah, if a dog is spayed, is there a hormonal replacement therapy to help with problems later in their life? Yes, we can provide glandulars that are basically made from hormone glands from other animals. They're ground up, dried, and then put in a capsule. We call those supplements glandulars. Standard Process has some of those, and then Dr. Becker on Mercola also has hormonal replacement supplements that you can purchase. It certainly is helpful. I personally also like to just muscle test to see if an animal really needs it, because when a dog is spayed, the adrenal glands will take over some of the action of what the ovaries were doing prior. And you can see that in women, when we go through menopause, the hormones from the ovaries decrease significantly, but then the adrenal hormones start to kick in more. So the adrenals will make some estrogen and progesterone. So not every dog really needs it, but it may be helpful and certainly something to consider. All right, Michelle, I would love to know your thoughts on DNA testing for potential health issues and using holistic and functional medicine for management before they become a problem. Yeah, that's very good that you're, looking at being so proactive. Certainly DNA testing is a good, can be very helpful. But the DNA is really only to a small percentage responsible for the symptoms that then show up later in life. In the human field, they have found that genetics only make a very small percentage of diseases. Most of them are really environmentally driven. So looking at the environment and lifestyle and all that, nutrition and all the things that we talked about are really crucial, but it certainly is, it doesn't hurt to do a DNA test, and that way you can be more proactive as well, have a little bit more information. I'm an information junkie, so I like to have a lot of information because it just gives me more to go by. So Anna Maria, I have always been curious about cleansing protocols. I've never performed one on myself or my animals. Could you discuss this a bit? All right, so yeah, cleansing protocols. There are a lot of different cleansing protocols out there. And I think that when it comes to cleansing, one of the most important things is that we continuously do it on a daily basis. For example, for my own food and for my animal patients, they get good nutrition that already contains things in it that also support detoxification through the nutrients that they're receiving. So for example, in my smoothie, I very much, I put a lot of vegetables in it. I put dandelion in it. I put, all kinds of other weeds that I find in my garden in it to help support that. But I also use a company called 5 Leaf Pet Botanicals. They have a 3-week detox protocol that's based on herbs. It's herbal tinctures and some green powder. And so I use that for my patients. But again, you want to make sure that your animal is somewhat stable before you even start that. So you want to make sure the diet is in place and then the GI tract is healthy, because you want to make sure that when you do detoxification, that the body is really able to get rid of the toxins and doesn't accumulate them. Because if the liver is too sluggish and can't process that because it's not getting enough of the nutrients that it needs to do to detoxify, then the toxins will just kind of float around in the blood circulation, and that can actually make an animal feel worse. So we want to make sure that we have the detox pathways open to really do this kind of cleansing. All right, so Jane asked, what is the website that tells you the quality of water in your zip code? It's the Environmental Working Group. I think it's ewg.org or something like that. All right, Georgia, does it include starting a new puppy? Yes, definitely. The course also will talk about all of these things that you need to know for your puppy, because puppies and adult animals in general, they all need the same thing. Obviously, we focus a little bit on different things depending on the life stage that are in, but it will definitely including starting a new puppy and doing all that you can in order to prevent disease and set them up for a healthy life. All right, Amy, do you see fatty lipomas as a way the dogs are trying to eliminate toxins from the body? Or following the Chinese medicine approach that is a stagnation of body fluids, or a combo of both? Well, I think they're really not that much different, these two approaches, because they all are achieving the same thing. So definitely, working on detoxifying the body can help with lipomas, because we definitely want to make sure that we can pay attention to the symptoms that we see, and fatty lipomas are a symptom and a sign that there is a little bit of an underlying problem that the body could use some help with. And using Chinese herbs, detox, there are all kinds of ways to sort of work with that. All right, so Deborah says, is this, my Brix and Ivy are already in your care. Is this program for current patients or other? I'm so very thankful to have met you after years and years of searching for a holistic vet. Anyhow, I'm not a newbie in the holistic world, but I sure can and want to learn so much more. So not a question for the chat, but wondered about the class. Loved your information today. Thank you, Deborah. Yes, this program is for anyone. Obviously, there are some of my clients who have gone through a more intensive program than you have, so it wouldn't necessarily be for them, but for you, definitely, because I have a lot to share for sure. All right, Lorraine, my Shiba Inu eats raw pre-made. I'm feeding bones and coal. Sometimes he just eats once a day. Is that okay? I rotate proteins every 12 days. He's 4 years old. Yes, definitely. It's okay if they eat one day a week, one meal a day, because the thing is that animals should be able to self-regulate and also know what they need and how much they need. And so just feeding them if they eat only once a day, that's okay. What becomes a bit more concerning is if they will throw up on an empty stomach. So when they do that, then I definitely want to, support them more so that they don't feel nauseous. Because if they don't eat because they're nauseous, that's not really what we're looking for. If they're not eating because they're not hungry, that's a different story. And in the wild, they also don't eat every day. Not even every day, and they don't get 2 meals served at exactly the same time. They have to go out and run and chase something down, and then they eat, and then they go sleep it off, and then they get hungry again, and they go chase things again. And then if they don't find anything, well, then they go back to sleep hungry. So that's nature, and I think, following nature is always kind of the best way to do it. And it's also good when they do a little bit of fasting, because that can also give their body a little bit of break and give it a little bit of more time to repair itself. So giving, fasting and not eating regularly is not hurtful to them, unless they obviously start losing weight and show other kinds of issues. All right, Susie, I have a dog that has delayed stomach emptying and acid reflux. Feeding raw food has helped, and currently giving gut restore. Do you have any other suggestions that might help him? Yes, definitely. I highly recommend looking into doing some chiropractic work and possibly some visceral manipulation, because the stomach is very much innervated by the nervous system. And so if the nervous system has a little bit of a kink somewhere, then the nerve input into the stomach and the gastrointestinal tract in general will be a little bit limited. So you definitely want to look at that part as well while you're trying to resolve this acid reflux. There are also some dogs that will have their stomach, getting a little bit stuck in the diaphragm, because there's a space in the diaphragm where the esophagus goes through, and then the stomach sits on the other side. And so if the stomach rises up into that little space a little bit and gets a little stuck in there, that can cause discomfort and acid reflux and delay the stomach emptying. So we want to make sure that that's kind of all functioning properly in that area. And chiropractic work and visceral manipulation can help a lot with that. All right, April, when does the course start? By the way, it's 1:20 a.m. here. Well, I'm excited for this. Yeah, April already signed up. So the course will start, let's see, it's on a Monday, on the 24th. So that's the plan, to start on the 24th of January. All right, and Alice, I did put in the link, and regarding cost, it's something that I will share in the phone interview that I do with people, because it's really important to understand more about your individual situation, and it helps me to be able to explain the real value of the program so much better to you. And I'll be honest with you for sure, if it's not a right fit for your current circumstances, I will definitely let you know. All right, and I know I have a lot more messages here. I'm just gonna pick a few. Shirley, we have a 14-year-old wow, I like that, who is still very active, but are there any herbs that I should be giving him? I was told that lemon balm could help with memory, but I don't want to mess with his diet too much because he is doing so well. Definitely, if you don't want to add, things to his food, definitely doing exercises with him, that can help a lot to stimulate the nervous system, because when they move and they use different body parts and have to balance and all of that, that really stimulates the brain to create new nerve pathways and strengthen nerve pathways. So for example, in humans, they have found that people who dance, who play ping pong and play tennis and things like that their brain actually stays healthy, and they have more brain matter, into old age because of that. So movement and exercise and challenges are very important. And also, taking them on snifaris where they can sniff around, have new experiences, go new places. All of these things really help with memory. All right, moving backwards. Hi, Chrissy says, I have an acute situation of a red hot ear, thinking ear mites. Is this something that can be treated with herbal medicine? We have a visit with an herbal vet on Wednesday. Well, if it's acute and your dog is in a lot of pain, you might just swing by to the ER and have them have a look, because there are different things that can be affecting the ears. It could be ear mites for sure, but most of the time it's bacterial infection or yeast infection or a combination of the two. And you also, especially when it's acute and red hot, you want to be sure that somebody actually looks into the ear, because sometimes the eardrum is ruptured, and there are certain things that you do not want to put into the ear when that's the case, because that can then cause hearing loss. So I would suggest that you check in with your regular vet, depending on how bad it is, or go to the ER for that to give your animal some relief. All right, so how does the program work? The phone interview first. So yes, so first we do the interview to see if this is a good fit for you, if this is, and if we can work together. And then after that, the program gets started, as I mentioned, in January, and it's an 8-week type of course where you will have lectures every week. And then every week you will also get a Q&A session where I will answer your questions. And then you'll also be part of a community, kind of like a Facebook group, like a private Facebook group, but it's going to be on a different platform because I don't trust Facebook these days. And then, so the course itself is 8 weeks, but you have access to Q&As and the community for life, basically. So this is ongoing. So you get a lot of value from that and support. Yes, the Zoom meeting will be available afterwards. Chris asked, and then, and Donna said, I just posted the link. Oh, okay. It worked for me to sign up. Very good. Dorinda, thank you. I look forward to talking to you. All right, other questions. Shirley says, I find it hard to totally avoid stress with our younger dog who I do agility with. So are there specific herbs that I should be giving her? She's a Staffy and goes from 0, I guess, to 100 in the arousal stakes, despite trying to do a lot of training to help her with this. Definitely there are herbs that you can use, CBD oil, certainly herbs that support the adrenal glands and are adaptogenic, such as ashwagandha, for example. I would certainly also look at the gastrointestinal tract and see if the microbiome needs a little bit of help, because the microbiome makes a lot of neurotransmitters that have a calming effect on the brain. So I would look at that. Possibly using some calming essential oils might work as well. You can put a little dab on her collar, for example. So those are some of the things that you can try. All right, so Michelle says, this is the answer I've been looking for since starting my search to help improve quality of life for my pack of rescue dogs. Awesome, Michelle. I look forward to talking to you. Lorraine, committed and have been with my Shiba Inu, and you do follow a holistic approach. We love you, Dr. Suter. Oh, thank you so much. All right, Janet, my young active field bred working golden push me to walk them for 4 to 5 miles a day, every day, no matter what, off leash around my 200-acre farm. Wow, that's amazing. They are very lucky. So I think I'm gonna stop right here. Because I've kind of taken up a lot of your time here, and I so appreciate you having been here and sharing this with me. I'm really touched. It really warms my heart to see so many people like yourselves be so enthusiastic about your animals' health. So I wish you all the best for your animals, and I really, really look forward to speaking with you guys and helping your animals and get started on this journey together. All right, have a wonderful day. Bye.